This lesson will illustrate some real-world examples of how agricultural commodities can impact financial markets, economies, and global trade. And while there are several additional examples that could be included in this lesson, we've pulled just a few to highlight how these products can pose significant adverse impacts on food consumption, inflation, as well as import-export activity, and more. As we've illustrated, agricultural commodities play an immensely important role not only in the global food supply, but also in broader global economic dynamics, and major events and catalysts can completely upend ecosystems and create dramatic conditions for all involved. Well, let's start with the coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic, which posed a major impact on agricultural commodities, most critically in supply chain shortages of staples such as livestock and dairy products. In response to these shortages, prices surged, creating inflationary pressures on food prices. The FAO Food Price Index, for example, saw massive spikes from 2020, all across categories including meat, dairy, and sugar. According to the USDA, the pandemic also led to significant changes in U.S. consumers' food spending patterns in early 2020 before returning to more typical pre-pandemic levels in April the following year. In March 2020, for example, efforts to limit the spread of COVID-19 included stay-at-home orders that prompted these changes, where people generally bought more food products for at-home consumption, leading to increased demand for certain agricultural products such as grains and canned goods. In turn, the financial markets reacted by adjusting commodity prices based on supply and demand shifts, and some agricultural commodities experienced increased speculative activity. Meanwhile, changes to certain federal government policies can effectively shift entire global trading practices. Take trade tariffs, for example, which can exert a strong influence in agricultural commodities markets. Consider the US-China trade war that started in 2018, where China, the world's largest importer of soybeans, levied heavy tariffs on US agricultural exports, including those soybeans. This action basically compelled US farmers to seek alternative markets, which ultimately spurred volatility in the prices of soybean futures. Indeed, the tariffs directly affected the US farming economy, leading to lower revenue for soybean farmers and shifting global trade flows. This illustrates a great example of how political decisions, such as trade tariffs, can create major price fluctuations, affecting both commodity producers and investors alike. In terms of extreme weather risks, the US drought of 2012 affected commodities such as corn, soybeans, and wheat production, which has a considerable impact on the markets as the US is the world's largest producer of these crops. In fact, this was the worst drought to hit the US in 50 years, drastically reducing crop yields. Among other consequences, prices of corn futures spiked by 40% in the span of just a few months, affecting everything from animal feed to ethanol production. The drought also had an impact on global trade, as other countries like Brazil and Argentina took advantage of the US supply shortfall by increasing exports to try and fill in product needs globally. For the financial markets, the drought generally led to increased commodity speculation and increased commodity-related ETFs, with investors seeking to capitalize on the weather-driven volatility. Further back in history, the global food crisis of 2007-2008 is another prime example of how agricultural commodities can trigger a chain reaction in economies. This dire situation was born out of a combination of bad weather, higher oil prices, and increased biofuel demand, all of which sent agricultural commodity prices soaring. Prices of basic food staples like rice, wheat, and corn, for example, shot higher, creating food shortages in many developing nations. And this, in turn, spurred social unrest in countries like Egypt, Haiti, and Bangladesh, where food became unaffordable for millions of people. The spike in agricultural commodity prices also impacted global financial markets, especially in the energy sector, as biofuels became more prominent in the energy mix. Now, these are just a few examples. In fact, there are numerous scenarios that can illustrate how agricultural commodities are intricately tied to global financial markets, economies, and international trade. You can also learn more from information across our campus, for example, by listening to IBKR podcasts, where we house a treasure trove of current and historical discussions about agricultural commodities with industry experts. I'm Stephen Levine with Interactive Brokers.